Hi, meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Thursday morning, December 2nd. Quite a mild morning here in the Mid-Atlantic region compared to the last few, and it will be a very mild day this afternoon. High temperatures in D.C. this afternoon could reach the 65-degree mark, maybe 60 in Philly, 55 in New York City. Winds, however, will become quite a factor. They will increase in intensity from a southwest to a west direction, help to funnel in some of that milder air that's been out over the middle part of the country over the past couple of days. Winds could certainly gust past 35 miles per hour or so, especially down in the D.C. metro region this afternoon. It does turn colder this weekend, and then a strong cold front arrives in the eastern states on Monday with some rain shower activity. Some places far interior and higher elevation locations of the northeastern part of the nation, the rain could change to snow. It does usher in a cold air mass for the early and middle part of next week, and there will be another system that follows closely on its heels by the middle of next week with some of that cold air still in place. There certainly can be some snow or ice to deal with in parts of the northeastern quadrant of the nation. We'll get into that over the next few minutes. I want to start off with the Madden Julian oscillation, the latest look at it. This particular type of plot has the forecast of this tropical disturbance index in green, and this happens to be from the ensemble run of the GFS, and we've talked about this kind of a plot in recent videos. It's separated into 8 different phases. This is phase 6 and phase 7, and composite maps have been made out of observations in the past. This time of the year, phase 6, for example, is generally a warm type of phase, a warm type of pattern for the central and eastern U.S., whereas phase 7, this time of year, can be a cold pattern across the U.S., at least the central and eastern part of the nation. So indeed, the GFS forecast map, and this moves in a counterclockwise direction, goes through phase 6 over the next several days, and then into phase 7, and the farther away from this inner circle it moves, the stronger the MJO signal, the Madden Julian oscillation signal. So this is telling us we are going through a warm period here, but then ultimately could go into a cold phase for the central and eastern U.S. as we progress through the first half of the month of December. Well, let's walk through the next several days, and again, some interesting possibilities for next week, specifically the middle part of next week for the Great Lakes, the Mid-Atlantic, the northeastern part of the nation. Wanted to use the Canadian model. I think it has a little better handle on the weather situation next week than the GFS model, for example. Basically, in terms of retreating the cold air, computer forecast models tend to retreat the cold air in the Mid-Atlantic region, in the northeast U.S. a little bit too quickly, and that could play a big role in the system that follows the cold front early in the week. The system that arrives in the middle of the week, I think, will still have some pretty decent cold air to work with in the northeastern part of the nation. First of all, for today, basically a nationwide warmer than normal spell here. It has been confined to the western half or western 2/3 of the nation in recent days, but spreading to the north and east today, and again, we'll be well above normal this afternoon. Places like D.C., Philadelphia, New York City. Warm up today will be short-lived, though. Colder air will move into the northeastern part of the U.S. overnight tonight, and really tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday will be considerably cooler than it will be this afternoon. So let's move forward here and watch what happens over the next few days. First of all, by tomorrow morning, certainly colder air drops to the south and east as high pressure builds across southeastern Canada. Now, tomorrow itself will be quite a different story in terms of relative to normal with respect to temperatures, depending on if you're way up in the New England area, or let's say the northern Mid-Atlantic, or let's say the southern Mid-Atlantic. For example, if you're up in central New York tomorrow, it will be a cold day, a windy day, well below normal. If you're in, let's say, the Philadelphia metro region, certainly 10 degrees colder tomorrow afternoon than it will be this afternoon. Seasonably chilly for this time of the year. But then if you're down, let's say, in southern Virginia, quite a different story, still a little bit above normal and a mild day on Friday, much the same as it will be today. Then we move through the weekend. Again, it generally remains on the chilly side across the Mid-Atlantic region, maybe seasonably chilly right here. Again, the farther north you go, the colder it is relative to normal. Farther south you go in the eastern U.S., the warmer it is this weekend relative to normal. Here we are now moving into Sunday, and then we start looking upstream. And here we go by Monday morning. Not too hard to find the cold front on these particular 850 millibar temperature anomaly forecast maps. Again, using the Canadian model from 0Z last night. The Canadian model, by the way, underwent a major upgrade yesterday, basically increasing its vertical resolution. We'll see if that improves its performance. Here's that cold front moving into the eastern U.S. on Monday. By the time we get to Monday night and Tuesday, we know the drill. It'll be windy and cold in the Mid-Atlantic, in the Northeast, in the eastern Great Lakes, Monday night and Tuesday. And that cold air is always somewhat reluctant to give up its ground. Now here we'll go all the way into Wednesday morning, and I cite Wednesday morning because that's when another upper level system likely pushes some moisture back into the northeastern part of the nation. There should be enough cold air around for some frozen precipitation, at least in the interior, higher elevation locations of the Mid-Atlantic, of the Northeast U.S. In fact, it could turn out to be a pretty decent accumulating snow event, interior New England, for example, Wednesday into Wednesday night time frame. And that cold air, again, kind of slow to retreat. Here we are all the way into Thursday morning. Finally, at this point in time, you start to see some warmer air showing up in the southeast U.S., but the cold air hangs on across the northeastern states. Well, let's now take a look at the 500 millibar vorticity field. Again, vorticity maxima are associated with spin in the atmosphere, the upper part of the atmosphere, and that's associated with upward motion down at the surface level. So that's where we tend to look for clouds and precipitation. And when there are a lot of vorticity maxima on the field at the same time, it certainly makes it more difficult for the computer forecast models, and that will be the case next week. So bottom line is we have to monitor this situation over the next several days before we have a real confident grab of the situation that's coming in the middle of next week. First of all, starting off the day here on Thursday, notice vorticity, stretched out vorticity here across the Great Lakes. And by tonight, that drops south and east, and that's associated with that colder air that will again push across the Great Lakes into the Northeast, somewhat into the Mid-Atlantic region, not so much down across the southeastern states. Again, the main polar jet right in this region right here. We showed the map yesterday of a typical La Nina winter season. It was either yesterday or the day before yesterday, and this is it. The polar jet kind of dominates, not so much of a southern jet as is often the case with El Nino type winters, but La Nina, you have the polar jet, and that kind of bottles up the colder air across the northern plains, maybe southwestern Canada, and some of that makes its way into the northeastern states. It's always a struggle in the Mid-Atlantic region. Maybe in the northern Mid-Atlantic you get more cold relative to normal than you do in the southern Mid-Atlantic. So here we are by Friday morning. A chilly weekend for the most part in the Mid-Atlantic, Northeast U.S., and then we get all the way into the early part of next week. This is the Monday morning forecast map, again using the 0Z Canadian model. Very vigorous upper level system here. That's associated with a strong cold front and a big push of colder than normal air dropping from southern central Canada across the Midwest into the Great Lakes region. By the time we get into Monday night and Tuesday, it'll be fully entrenched in the Mid-Atlantic region. Here we go. By Tuesday morning, no doubt a windy and a cold day with cold air entrenched in the Mid-Atlantic region. And then we move into the middle part of next week. This is the Tuesday night forecast map. And I want to point out all these players here, and this makes it difficult to pinpoint which one will end up dominating. Here's an upper level low, again, Tuesday night of next week. Here's another one over the extreme southwestern part of California, the northwestern part of Baja, and here's yet another wave showing up in south central Canada. And it is really this kind of a wave right here over the Gulf of Mexico by Wednesday afternoon, combined with a wave over the Great Lakes that will help to spread some moisture, it looks like, by the middle part of next week. And again, cold air will be reluctant, at least in the lower levels of the atmosphere, to give up its ground. Cold air is dense air, so it's always easier to cause the air to retreat aloft than it is down at the surface this time of the year. So cold air can certainly hang on in at least parts of the Mid-Atlantic region by the time we get to Wednesday of next week, and certainly across New England where there could be some accumulating snow. And then we keep moving forward here. This system passes on through the northeastern states by the time we get to Thursday, and yet into Friday this system starts pulling out, and so we could have another system following closely behind the midweek system. So strong cold front early next week, one system arrives in the middle of next week, and then another system, a third system, the end of next week. So it looks like an active week indeed across the eastern U.S. Well, let's see how all this translates to the surface forecast maps from the Zero-Z Canadian model runs. A few showers pass through the Mid-Atlantic region in the overnight hours associated with a warm front kind of sliding from the southwest to the northeast across the region, and that will usher in milder air. Now notice right here, this is the afternoon forecast map. I just want to point out a little bit of a kink in the isobar pattern right here, and this is a trough axis that will form along the Appalachian Mountains, and that will help to intensify the winds right along the Appalachian Mountains, let's say central Pennsylvania, far western areas of Virginia, West Virginia, and again that will help to intensify the winds, and it'll become quite windy even into the DC metro region this afternoon, out of the west to southwest. This particular flow of air, winds blow counterclockwise around low pressure systems. So here we go. This would basically be a west, maybe a little bit of a southwesterly flow of air in the Mid-Atlantic region. And again, watch out for 30, 35 mile per hour gusts in DC, maybe a little bit less in Philadelphia and New York, but not only milder this afternoon, but it will be windy as well. Then we move forward here. Colder air starts to funnel into the northeastern part of the nation as high pressure builds across southeastern Canada. The flow of air around a high pressure is clockwise. So here we go. We have northerly winds developing. And again, if you're in upstate New York, it'll be way below normal. If you're in southeastern Pennsylvania, it'll be a little bit below normal. And if you're way down in southeastern Virginia, you'll stay milder than normal on Friday afternoon. But colder air will certainly come into this part of the nation as we move through the day on Friday. And it stays pretty chilly in that region over the upcoming weekend. Then we get into Sunday, and finally by Monday morning, here we go. We have a strong cold front right in this position right here by the time we get to Monday morning of next week. That's a strong cold front. And look at this flow of air behind it. Low pressure here, high pressure here, very strong pressure gradient, and basically a flow out of the north, pouring cold air into the northern plains, into the upper Midwest as we begin the week next week. And this front just pushes on through right here in this region. By the time we get to Monday evening, it's lying right along the eastern seaboard. There certainly can be some showers, but the bigger issue will likely be the winds coming Monday night and Tuesday. Certainly a cold day on Tuesday with the winds. And here we go. By the time we get to Tuesday night, high pressure in control, not only across the upper part of the Midwest, but another one back there across south central Canada. And this is still a cold air mass sitting in this position. Again, this is Tuesday night of next week. Still a lot of cold air right around here. So by the time we get to Wednesday, that upper level feature that at this time is situated over the south central U.S. will combine with the one over the Great Lakes will help to push some moisture to the east. And this may change over the next few days because of the complicated scenario here. If one of these upper level waves becomes stronger and the other weaker. This whole pattern could change, but right now, as it stands, it could be enough cold air around, but by the time we get to the middle part of next week, let's say Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening time frame, it could be cold enough for snow. Maybe even some ice in some areas. Ice is not out of the question here because cold air may hang on initially the lower levels but retreat at the upper levels in parts of the middle Atlantic region. So that is kind of the scenario for potentially freezing rain or sleet. We'll see. But this is the time of interest. This is the Wednesday evening forecast map of next week. Still several days away. And then we talked about another system right on its heels. And here we go. By the time we get to Thursday night into Friday, at least this particular run of the Canadian model has yet another threat for maybe some frozen precipitation in parts of the middle Atlantic region late next week. So a very active pattern. Bottom line is very mild today in much of the eastern U.S. and indeed across the entire nation for at least this one day. Then it turns colder in the northeastern part of the nation for tonight, tomorrow, and the weekend. Strong cold front early next week. One system arrives in the northeastern states by the middle of next week, and yet another system by the end of next week. So a lot going on. So certainly stay tuned for further updates on meteorology.